सीधा नहीं होता
नहीं ये प्रॉब्लम ये है
नहीं हो
भाई इस पे खड़े
हाँ चेयर पे खड़े हो कर सकते हैं
तो खड़े करो हाँ सीधा करो
थोड़ा जूम आउट करो
या सीधा करो
और थोड़ा जूम आउट
feet of the chair
that's it
little more zoom out zoom out yeah perfect so
broadcast right yeah YouTube subscribe right nothing brand new yeah we bought around and you built it we built it you get the masjid or no no we built it from near say okay good I'm just asking yeah it's good yeah I don't think we should build masjid yes oh really you can't sell the masjid once you build a masjid you can't sell it you can't make anything other than a masjid so if you build something you get the masjid and let's just say you live in this place you want to move you're stuck this is a masjid forever you know what I'm saying the best thing to do is open the city we open up the ये कौन था पीछे
नहीं भाई YouTube का कैसे ये केबल आता है this is the problem
oh it is on YouTube I'm surprised everyone
yes live share with who with Olana I'm going to share with you
no I'm just worried about the video not transmitting through this
I mean the video is going
video is going everyone was sound here
yeah the video is going
yeah let me show you अभी मिलेंगे आपको भेज दो शेयर को भेजो
मेरे पास मेरा बैटरी डेड है यहाँ
send it to me or send it is on here to check from the देखो ना play करो
yeah
no I know
alaikum salam why not
it should be sorry
जी ऐसी वीडियो नहीं है देखो सब खाली का सलाम अलैकुम मास्टर को शिकायत कुछ आता नहीं
क्या करना है खाली वीडियो पूरा ब्रॉडकास्ट
आवाज आ रही है
उसका नंबर लेके जो साइन कर दो
Ahmed saying the link and start listening to our lecture. There you go.
you have his number
I just
इसकी भी जरूरत है नहीं so ये तलामिया मैं बता रहा हूँ this is it's hold it ये just so इसमें लगा
Okay. Go ahead with this. Please.
अच्छा वन ईयर वीडियो एक मिनट है लगा
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Let's welcome Sheikh Uddin with the last salawat. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل
ये कैसा है
Y'all hear me okay? The video looks good?
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Almost, yeah.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. सोचो क्या करूं ऐसे केवल ऐसे केवल लॉजिक ये HDMI है लगा है ना हाँ लगा पाए
ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي القدير أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله ولو آمن أهل الكتاب لكان خيرا لهم منهم المؤمنون وأكثرهم الفاسقون صدق الله. Brothers and sisters, each and every one of you, inshallah. May Allah accept your fasting, your amal, your sacrifices, your babies, for the sake of Allah. And today, this evening, especially in Mubarak, is the birthday of من حسن المجتمع عليه الصلاة والسلام. صلوات.
That's good enough.
So we started a discussion last night. It's a very important discussion in my point of view, and there's a reason I want to have this discussion with you. We started a discussion last night concerning the North American Islamic movement. This isn't an organization that exists. But we're talking about the history and development of Islamic movement.
Once a use karo.
Especially people who are living in North America.
ये वीडियो नहीं आ रहा
And inshallah, people who are
पर वैसे करते थे ना नहीं we never use a laptop हाँ laptop से करते
it's important
कैसा
for us
करते
to
थे
recognize where we
ये
live.
कैसे
And as we said last night,
YouTube से
this
करते थे
discussion
करते
is
थे
going to help us with these two important issues that our community as a whole is facing.
एक splitter था एक
Not just followers of
Yeah. नहीं ये तो है
Just two questions of identity and purpose. Now, alhamdulillah, all the brothers,
ये कौन निकाले ऊपर तुम रख दिए क्या बोला ये
we're pretty secure in our
पक्की निकाले नहीं ये नहीं
We
निकाला
know who we are.
ऑलवेज की मैं बोल रहा नहीं तो पीसी दबा
But most importantly, for the younger generation, there's this question that exists
जाते
in
हैं
the
आपको
younger
गरम से पहले निकाले
generation's
थे
mind.
केबला निकाल
Meaning, am I a Pakistani or an American? Am
ये
I an Iraqi or am I an American? Am I Iranian or am I an American? Can I be both? Is it possible for me to be both? And can I be a Muslim and an American? And this is a very important question to ask ourselves and to discover the answer to in these discussions, inshallah. Because when I look around in the Muslim community, I see us suffering from a type of schizophrenia. You all know what schizophrenia is, right? We have multiple personalities sometimes. Not to use the word schizophrenia, because that's a different illness. We have a multiple personality syndrome. You can see it especially amongst the children of the immigrants. At home, they'll be very good Pakistanis or Indians. Then they wear shalwar kameez, they eat biryani, they love filfil, bahakaza. When they go outside, they're very good Americans. And they know how to code switch. We call it English code switch. So at home, they can speak Urdu or Farsi or Arabic. And when they step out, they can switch the code back to perfect English. And they live in two cultures. We have to figure out how to bring balance to these people. To rectify that identity so that our young people aren't faced with a choice between being an American or an Iraqi. They're not faced with the choice of being an American or a Muslim. We have to have this discussion about identity and purpose so that we can find ourselves in this culture. It's very important that we have this discussion. One of the greatest difficulties we've had in North America, and you'll see it, like not tonight, these few nights that we're going through in the beginning, we're laying a foundation. By the time the weekend comes, we'll be really getting into hard work. We will get to see some of the difficulties that we're facing as a people. And really, I don't know if many of our immigrant brothers realize the danger that we're facing. Getting Islam to our third generation has been very difficult in North America. And so, as an example, let me just use me as an example. I converted to Islam. My second generation, my children are Muslims and they identify as Muslims. But the test that we're facing in North America is that my grandchildren should be Muslim. This has been the test in North America. And with every group that we will discuss in the coming days, this has been our struggle. The first generation is clear about who they are. They are Muslims and they are living here in America. The second generation holds on to their deen and to their identity, even if it's with some hardship and some struggle. But we're losing the third generation. By the time we get to the third generation, we're losing people. So it's very important for us to have this discussion about identity and purpose. I think we mentioned something about identity. Let's remind you again what we mentioned last night about purpose. Purpose is very important for you. Not just because we should understand what our identity is, where we fit in North America, what our history is in North America, but we have to figure out what our purpose is in North America. It's very important for us. Because the people who have no purpose, they get lost very easily. We don't understand why we're here, what our purpose is here, then we get lost very easily. And we mentioned last time, Western culture is the only culture in the history of humanity that defines the purpose of human beings as la'wa, play and entertainment. If you look at our Western culture, particularly American culture, I mean, sit down and meditate on it for yourself. What's required of us? What is our purpose in this culture? Enjoy. If it feels good, good. And if you don't feel good, it's wrong. This is what the culture is teaching us, whether we recognize it or not. This is a culture that's based on enjoy yourself, have fun. You're supposed to be happy, and they pile you up with stuff. Still, the people are happy. I mean, there's not enough donuts to make us happy. There's not enough women. There's not enough men. There's not enough money. If money is the way we gauge happiness, then realize that money is numbers, and numbers never end. So if you need money to get happy, when will you find happiness? We have to figure out every other culture in the history of mankind has given human beings a purpose, and that too a divine purpose. In every culture. Every culture that comes, you look in Persian culture, you look in Arab culture, you look in Pakistani culture, or even Hindu culture. They are giving a human being a purpose. And the purpose has a divine link to
Close to
it.
this.
And from the start of humanity, that exists within a human being is recognized in those cultures. Only in our culture.
बॉक्स अलग रखा तो मैं ये स्केच से रखा निकाल कर देंगे कल
So we can't have this discussion about identity and about purpose.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So one of the first things that we want to point out here, for all of our people that are born and raised through the Islamic family, the first thing we have to recognize is that Allah is creating an unlimited humanity. Just as distinct and just as unique as the Ummah that He's created before in Iran, in India, Pakistan, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Saudi Arabia, wherever else. He has created a distinct community. And Allah was going to admit it. But the fact is that we have a shared history. As we go through the history of Islam in North America, you're going to get to see how much of a history we share together. We have a shared history. We have a shared experience. We share a language. It's something very important. I mean, don't just think that because he's from India, this one from Pakistan, that one from Iraq, this one from Iran, he's from America. We don't share language. We share a language. We have a language and a culture that we participate in together here in the world. Islam has a very deep influence on this culture. Just this year, Webster's Dictionary put halal as the new English word. Halal is a word now in English. And this is the influence that we're having on the culture around us. We share a language. We have a culture. We share an identity. As American Muslims, we are a people. And we should begin to recognize that we are a people distinct and separate even from the place where we originated from. And tonight I made up my mind to be talking about Johnson. Johnson is probably considers himself an theologist. Right? But Johnson, I'm going to bust your brother. Johnson, you're an American. The reason you're here, brother, and not there is because you don't fit in here. If we picked you up and sent you back tomorrow, you wouldn't fit in. Okay? And that's the same for most of you here. You're here because you weren't very good at the Iranians or Pakistanis or Indians or Iranians or Lebanese. You had to find yourself in the land of broken boys here in North America. There's nothing wrong with that. We have to recognize that we're creating something new, and this is beautiful. Huh? This is enough of introduction tonight. Let's continue. Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
We'll speak some more about purpose in another night. We have some notes here also about purpose. We have to realize what our purpose is here in North America. We have to realize that look, this global Western culture, materialistic culture is being spread to the rest of the world. Right now, you don't have to come to America to be Americanized. You're Americanizing it in Karachi. You're Americanizing it in Baghdad. You're Americanizing it in Beirut. You're Americanizing it right now in Tehran. You're not coming to America. This thing is spreading. And these people in the East, they cannot confront it. I'll be honest with you. The future of Islam is not in the East. And I know this is going to sound absolutely heretical to say that. Maybe it's the idea of American exceptionalism that we're raised to hear. But look, I'll give you an excellent example. One time I sat down with a group of ulama. We had a group of Asian ulama from North America on the West Coast. And in the terms of the discussion, this issue of Happy Muslims came up. Job, live. You know what? Eventually, silent because they understood where I'm going. Are our communities prepared for a bunch of believing ex-cons to come to the front door? Really, this is what we have to face. After the meeting, one of the most learned scholars in North America, he's originally from England, but I love him. He was my neighbor in the room when I was getting there. I really respect the man a lot. But what he said to me was so powerful. He said, Northie, I've lived here for this long, and I speak the language, and I understand, but I cannot penetrate culture. You could live here for 100 years, and you'll never be able to penetrate culture. You can penetrate culture. The people who are sitting in front of us. This younger generation that's in their mother's laps right now. These are the people that will be able to bring the best of the East and penetrate the Western culture and get it. That's just a little touch on purpose. Tonight we want to talk about another aspect of Islamic history in North America. And we're starting with the beginning. A lot of us don't know that Muslims have been here even before Christians. The Muslims explored North America more than 600 years before Columbus was even born. Muslims were here in North America long before Columbus ever showed up. Tonight we want to touch on very quickly, very briefly, inshallah, the Muslim exploration of the Americas before Columbus. So send us a lot of people to start.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Now, I don't want to waste much time. We want to get right to some things and do some fascinating examples. But to understand Muslim exploration of North America before Columbus, we must understand Al-Andalus, that in Islamic Spain. In 711, Muslims from North Africa invaded what was then Spain under the Visigoths and Vandals. The name Andalus comes from the name Vandals. Today, vandalism, the English word vandalism, to vandalize something, comes from this barbarian tribe that Joel's name in Muslims, the Vandals, because they're known for carrying stuff up. So, Muslims invaded Al-Andalus in 711, and by 718, all of the Iberian Peninsula, which today Spain and Portugal, had fallen under Muslim rule. This rule extended into southern France and extended even into these Alpine mountains that separate northern Italy from the rest of Western Europe. I want you to understand, Muslim Spain wasn't just confined to the Iberian Peninsula, it spread into southern France and even into these areas that separate Italy from Western Europe. It was a vast domain. And for almost 900 years, Muslims controlled Spain. Think about the special events or something about that, especially in regards to Imam Hassan's birthday, alayhi salatu wasalam.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
But let's just suffice it to say, the borders of this Islamic Spain began to shrink in the 1200s. The Reconquista, they call it, the Christian reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula, gradually defeated these Muslim principalities and kingdoms that existed in the Iberian Peninsula until by 1492, only Granada was left in the far southern reaches of Spain. And I want to say in January of 1492, Granada falls. 7 months later, Columbus sets sail. So what the Moors? Granada was captured by the Christian forces. The money that fell into the Castilian king's coffers and his treasury is what was used to finance Columbus's trip to the west. It was a Muslim law that Columbus to set sail to the west. Okay? So we understand that. We're not going to talk about Columbus tonight. Columbus is for tomorrow night. Okay? But for tonight, let's get into some of these examples because some of the stuff is very interesting and very insightful for us when it comes down to our history as Muslims in North America. Before I move on to Islam, so I want to come down just so we can recite this discussion to our next discussion. Islamic Spain was a center of knowledge and civilization for the entire Mediterranean basin as well as all of Europe. We are listening of some of the great scientists that came out of this Spain. We have Jabal Nayyan. Everybody's heard of Jabal Nayyan. Our students hate him very much. He's the founder of Humanology. Abu Ishaq Ibrahim bin Yahya Naqash al-Zarqali, he is one of the foremost astronomers. In surgery, the father of modern surgery, Abu Qasim Khalaf ibn Abbas al-Zahlawi al-Ansari, is known as the father of modern surgery. In pharmacology and medicine, Abu Marwan Abdul Malik ibn Zuhr, born in Seville, raised in Al-Andalus, and one of the foremost classical experts in pharmacology and in agronomy, like farming and plants and these things. We have Ibn Bassal, who is very well known for his Divan al-Falah. The book that describes how to do the farming and what plants and what where. We don't realize that in Spain, its topography and its geography resemble North Africa before Muslims invaded. Once Muslims invaded, they renovated the old Roman aqueducts, they brought the land back to life, and the green southern Spain that you know today is a result of the Muslim occupation of Spain. Before the Muslims invaded Spain, Spain looked more like North Africa. Okay, so Spain had a very prominent position that's often downplayed in Western history. Spain had a very prominent position, and many of our sciences are based on things that came out of Spain.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Now let's go into pre-Columbian explorations of North America. In the Arabic sources, there are documented, there are many things documented, but things that we can verify, things that we can prove, and in history, there are 3 voyages from Muslim Spain before Columbus that left Spain and arrived in the New World. These are documented in the Arabic sources of Al-Andalus. The first was the voyage of Kashkash ibn Sa'id ibn Aswad, who sailed west from Delta. Delta is the same port that Columbus would set sail from 600 years later. He set sail with a Muslim fleet in 889. 889 they set sail. And they sailed for more than a month across the Atlantic and found a new world, presumably in the Caribbean, and returned to Spain with great wealth and booty. This is what's mentioned in the historical document. That they returned to Spain after some time with great wealth and booty. Approximately 100 years later, in 999, a man by the name of Ibn Farouk sailed west from the Muslim Caribbean and discovered 2 islands that he described as being green and lush, presumably in the Caribbean, and returned to Spain, again, laden with great wealth and curiosities, they say, from this new land. few hundred years later, this is again documented, and this is by far one of the most fascinating stories that will show you the extent of Muslim exploration of North America before Columbus. 8 Muslim sailors sailed west from Portugal, port called Porto, in Portugal. And they were at sea for 31 days. And they landed in an unknown land, they said, and were captured by American Indians. And were held captive for 3 days. Now look, this is where the story gets interesting. On the 4th day, an American Indian was brought who was fluent in Arabic. You think about it. How much exchange between these cultures, between these civilizations, had to happen that an American Indian was fluent in Arabic. So they brought on the 4th day, they brought the American Indian who was fluent in Arabic, and he acted as a translator between these 8 sailors and their captors, and he arranged for their release. They were released, and they were sent back to Spain with gifts and treasures, and they returned to Spain and told the story of their adventure in the West, of their being captured, and of their coming across a native who was fluent in Arabic, fluent enough in Arabic to negotiate for their release from captivity. So this is something that's all documented in history. That Muslims explored and arrived in North America hundreds of years before Columbus. And it should be a point of pride for us as Muslims, those of us who are Arab, those of us who have any lineage that goes back to North Africa. Because it wasn't just the Muslims of Spain that set sail and went to North America. We also have at least 2 historical accounts, verified in history, of people from the African mainland setting sail and arriving in the West. One of them is mentioned by Columbus himself. Columbus himself, when he was setting sail to go to he made a stop over on the Canary Islands. As he sets into the Canary Islands, he sees a group of African ships returning from the West and heading towards Africa. Columbus himself witnessed ships coming from further west. This story that they teach us in school, that Columbus thought that the earth was flat, and that he would sail off the end of the earth too far. This is propaganda. Yes, many Europeans thought that, but Columbus was not one of them. Muslims had been sailing to the New World and had already figured out the circumference around the earth before Columbus. Columbus learned this knowledge from the Muslims in Spain and Portugal, from his travels along the African coast. So Columbus was never in any doubt as to whether there was a landmass on the other side of the ocean. So here's an example that let's give you one about Columbus from Morocco. Sheikh Zainabia Ali ibn Fazl al-Mazandaran set sail from Morocco in 1291, a place called Alfayda, and landed on Green Island, presumably in the Caribbean, and returned to Morocco with great wealth and from the African Union to Morocco, along and one of the most famous historical accounts of Muslim exploration of North America before Columbus comes from the king Mansa Musa. He was the king of the Mali Empire. He spends, he went on Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca, he collapsed the economy of Egypt because of how much gold he gave away. Very people. in Egypt is being defeated by arrows. That's not during his reign. So Moses says, only my brother was done so done in life. And he thinks that there was a landmass on the other end of the great dark seas. So we organized two expeditions. The first expedition was more than 1,000 ships. And they set sail from the West African coastline and they set out. And they had not been seen for a long time until one ship goes with one another, and adventures in the West. They encountered difficulties and hardships that they encountered. Many of the ships had been storm and sunk. So, Abubakar organized another expedition of another 1,000 plus ships, and he himself joined this expedition and set sail on the coastline. Now, this is a Muslim historical account. But if you look in North America, we have North American Indian tribes that their clan names for their tribes correspond directly to mandate clan names. Mandate tribe of their clan name. A missionary back in the Roman times made a dictionary of one of these American Indian languages along the middle of the eastern seaboard, where today you would say is North Carolina. In a dictionary of the language. Recently, linguists looking at this dictionary have found numerous Mande loanwords, words whose origin is from the Mande people, the Mandinka people, West Africa. And there's yet another South American Indian tribe that the glyphs, I guess you could say, that they use for their written language corresponds exactly to Mandinka glyphs used in West Africa. So these connections between Muslims in Africa and Spain and the New World were well established. And we should recognize that the Muslim exploration of North America was well established long before Columbus's journey is made on the back of Muslim explorers and Muslim knowledge. That's the issue. The conquest of Spain was only possible because Christian forces were able to divide the Muslim forces, to work against each other. Under the leadership of the Imam, under the leadership of the Khilafah. As a man left alone in his own family, and raised the honorable foundation. We have to confront this situation. Wife has the love that we have for our children, the love that our children have for us. This love is in the mind and it's good. That's the reason. So, it's a love that's simple. I love you because of what you do for me. And many of our friendships are like this also. You know, you see before, you found half of your friends are not really your friends. Even the love that we have for our friends is defined by selfishness. I'm your friend. But the least how you make me feel. And even these things should be effective, change, or basis of the system. Because it's emotional stuff. Some it's good, selfishness, self-serving. We love each other because the other person is not love each other. As she are reading by the Jew, there is only one existence, and that is Allah. The only existence is Allah. Everything else is a reflection of that existence. That means you are a reflection of the existence of Allah. You are a manifestation in this visible world of the existence of Allah. Everything is only one existence. Our existence we have it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the only real existence. And everything else that exists is a manifestation or a reflection of that existence. I have to love you based on that, not based on how good you are, how good you cook, how good you take care of me, or anything else, how good you make me feel. Because for as long as I love you and you love me, based on these selfish reasons, there will come a time when we will be separated. Someone can come and say, "Oh, God, you know, something." So you can come and display your wives here and say your husband doesn't love you. And you know what? Sisters, brothers, the love that you have between each other needs to be born. It's not a real love. It's a love that's based on external things and what we can get and gain from each other. And of course, every relationship has that aspect to it. But we have to love each other, care for each other, match each other. This is service. Y'all sit down, it's okay. I'm not somebody.
Assalamualaikum.